everybody. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for Tech Safe episode 58 here at WCCA TV in Worcester, Massachusetts. A shout out to our wonderful producer, Adam. Thank you so much for having us today. And I'm delighted to introduce our guest today. Her name is Shannon Rowan, and she has a story that will inform us. And she's also an author and an artist, and she has released a new book that we're so excited for her to share with us today. So welcome, Shannon.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, you bet. So let's start at the beginning. How did you figure out that wireless technology came with biological risk?
Yeah, the hard way. Yeah, like a lot of people. Although, interestingly, I was informed on the topic years before, just a little bit, when they first came out in the 90s. I'd heard that they might cause harm. So I had a slight awareness, and I always was a little cautious, but my awareness extended to shouldn't live right next to a tower or something, and I just didn't, and maybe don't sleep with the phone in your room, or, kind of keep some distance, but that's about it. However, I did always notice that heating effects on my ear if I held it too long to my ear. And so I'd use a, hands-free thing and kind of distance, but little did I know, I wish I had known that feeling that heating effect meant I was already injured. And so that injury just got worse, so now all the research I've done since has really informed me on that. But what happened is, since I didn't know and I didn't take more precautions, it got worse, and to the point where after a very long trip, actually to Bali, a lot of flight time, I got to a point where I couldn't tolerate exposures where I really felt them immediately and lasting effects afterward. And it got so bad, I was having chronic migraines and insomnia and heart arrhythmia, which was the most worrying symptom. And I could literally feel a cell tower before I saw it, feel people's phone, I feel their text going off before it pinged. I mean, it was like this ESP thing, which was kind of freaked people out and freaked me out, but it was nice party trick, right? But I then just thought, I can't do it. I was trying to fight it first. I was like, I just have to tell my local council, go to council meetings, do something about it, because they were about to put Wi-Fi in our health food store just had, and and I was trying to get it out and do all these things, and it was just too much to fight, and I was getting sicker. So my partner and I thought, we just have to get out of here, because my health, first priority. And getting out, we thought, would be a simple matter, and it wasn't, because you start to notice that there's a tower every mile outside the city. You thought, well, just go outside the city, and then you go into the suburbs, into rural areas, they're everywhere. So we actually moved to Arizona because it was one of the places where we could find a so-called dead zone, which is very much a misnomer, because to me, the dead zones are where the most life is flourishing, where, there isn't any non-native EMFs interference. So we moved to Arizona, and then we ended up having to move from there after 5 years, after we found a safe haven. Because of the smart grid coming in our rural area, like with the smart meters, and piggybacking off of that 5G. Before, there had been no radio frequencies at all. So we found ourselves having to leave again, even though we'd had to move a few times there too, with different houses, with different issues. And then, like most people, what I call Wi-Fi refugee, and I have a book of that title, it's like we just keep having to move. So we've been fortunate to be basically stable for the last 5 years now, out in the very, very off-grid, very rural, not even rural, wilderness area, caretaking of property, really very northern area, California, close to the border of Oregon. So, safe for now, knock on wood. There is a tower nearby, but we don't get the signals. So it's just everywhere. So that's basically my story, and how I became aware and how I started learning about it.
Yeah. Well, that's remarkable that you have been able to find a place. And so when you are in your local area, do you feel fine? Do you feel any symptoms?
Not where on our property. I feel good. Yeah, I can sleep in the house, which is something I was actually having to sleep outdoors most of the time in Arizona, because the dirty electricity, we couldn't really remediate enough in the house, even with breakers off and things. So I actually built a lot of makeshift structures for me to live in, outside, sleep in. I made tents and, you know.
Yeah.
So then we, out here, it's been great. I mean, I go into town and I have built up more tolerance now where I can handle some trips to town, but brief, short-lived trips. And I have the recovery. That's the important part. I can recover where I am. And that means I can then go do things in the world for short periods and then have the recovery. But a lot of people just don't have the opportunity to recover. And I think everyone's dealing with this, and it's manifesting in different ways. I have the so-called hypersensitivity, which I see as a gift now because I can protect myself. Other people just get cancer, they get tumors, they have diabetes, they have all kinds of problems, and they don't link it to these exposures.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's incredible. I did a live program. I gave a presentation to a preschool this week, and I was talking to the owner who's owned this school for years, and she sees such a difference in the children today. She said, oh yeah, you can tell as soon as the parents bring the child into the place who's just had that kid on a device or who just handed him Dunkin' Donuts or something on the way in here, because all of these environmental toxins, as you say, they're cumulative. They build up in the system till you get to a tipping point. And they were just so excited to know about this and to be able to say, wow, we actually have things we can do. We can start educating. Maybe we'll have you come in and speak at a bigger hall and really get the community going. And like you, I've spent a number of years going to my city council, going to our board of health at the local level, at the state level, and everybody seems to be saying we're waiting for higher authorities to tell us what to do. So I am still keeping information flowing at those levels, but really I see that the most important thing we can do today is to talk to people about this issue, because tonight people can take these little baby steps to start mitigating. So talk us through when you were first figuring out that, yeah, we really have a problem here. What were some of the first things that you did to try and reduce your exposures to as low as reasonably achievable, which is that Center for Disease Control's ALARA principle, as low as reasonably achievable. So what were your first steps?
My very first step was getting rid of my cell phone. And that was a big one. I'd finally gotten a smartphone. I hadn't had one. I'd been kind of a holdout, mostly because of the expense, not for other reasons. So when the expense came down, I was like, well, why not? I could do all these things on it, great, and had this great camera on it. And that was like the part that hooked me. I liked the camera. I'm a photographer, so, and then I got really sucked into using that, like everybody else, texting everywhere I went and going on Facebook looking for likes, for my posts and doing all that stuff. And then I realized how badly that was affecting me, that I just thought, first I tried to reduce my usage, but then that just wasn't working. And I just realized even texting was difficult. And I just said, I'm getting rid of it. I had a landline. I never had gotten rid of my landline. So I had that, and I had a cordless phone. So I hardwired the landline. And then I went and told everybody, I had to train them. I had a business. I was like, contact me through email or my landline and leave a voicemail. And it worked. People, you can do that. And, they can respect that. It's not like you have to. And I had one client who said, she was really supportive, said, nobody should make you use this technology. Like, you shouldn't have to, it should be a choice.
Yes.
So, right. So I did that, and that was helpful. It was about a year before we moved. So I got the filters for dirty electricity. Actually, my dirty electricity I was able to remediate pretty quickly. But I still had sleep issues because my neighbor's Wi-Fi router happened to be right under my bedroom floor, and they wouldn't move it anywhere else. It was on top of it. I didn't know this, and I had had all these problems sleeping for years with insomnia. And this whole time, they'd had the router right under my bedroom, and I didn't have it was a small apartment. There was nowhere else for me to put the bedroom, or my bed. And anyway, it kind of was everywhere in the apartment, but I got a meter. That was the other thing I did right away. It's like, got just a more affordable meter. I got a Cornet, we'll say, and I, could see the hotspot like from the Wi-Fi under my bed. Right. And so, so my, bless him, my boyfriend, like, built a Faraday cage because he's real handy, and aluminum screening around a wood frame under, like, it worked. We had doors with like tape around, like aluminum tape around it, so like no signal got in there. And it really worked. In fact, what he started finding out was that sleeping in that with me, that he slept better. And he was and he started to notice that he's sensitive because he got away from it, and now all these symptoms he used to have disappeared. He never thought had anything to do with it, So that bed, that Faraday cage really helped to, but it wasn't quite enough, because just everywhere I went and everything I was doing in the city was just still a lot of pain for me. But it got me through while we worked out other plans, and I had some shielded clothing, and I tried things that didn't turn out to work, that I spent a lot of money on. So there are definitely products out there that are not effective, that may kind of placebo effect, or placate people and think that they're doing something. Yeah, it can be harmful that way, in terms, especially if you're not sensitive, because you wouldn't know it's not helping you, and you'll keep engaging in these things that are harming you. So like those things that are supposed to make a Schumann resonance, and they just didn't help. In fact, they'd give me headaches sometimes, and so.
Yeah, we always say, if we can, remove the exposures. That's got to be your first line of defense. Because I know some people with a certain crystal, they feel like it's strengthening their biome, but the next person, it could completely short them out. So where products are concerned, we tend to go in with caution, and always suggest just pair up with someone who knows how to do muscle testing, and your body will tell you if that's going to strengthen you or weaken you. So muscle testing is a good fallback. And like you, I've never felt good under these fluorescent lights. So since I was a kid, my body's been telling me these man-made frequencies are doing something to you, and it's not good. So I've always just replaced those in all the offices I worked in with a desk lamp, or a set of desk lamps with an incandescent light bulb, and people just loved coming in my office. They just sit down for no reason, just go, oh, I just love it in here, right? But intellectually, we haven't been given the facts on what these man-made frequencies are doing to us. And so like you, I try to take every precaution I can without being too crazy about it, but I kept my landline. And folks should know that you can forward cell phone calls to a landline, because this was not meant to be used in our homes. It was meant to be mobile technology. And then, of course, industry found ways to help us get more convenient with boosters throughout our house and stuff. So after I stopped circling my tail, I too hardwired. And now I've got everybody in my world kind of trained to know, if you want to reach me, call me on my landline, shoot me an email, and I'll catch up to you, right? And it's lovely, because it kind of gives you your freedom back too. So we're not tethered to this device that's pulling our attention and creating such exhaustion all the time. Folks may know the name Sheena Symington. She founded the Electrosensitive Society, and she wound up getting very sick too. And then she was away from her home, and she got better. And then when she got back home, all these crazy symptoms started happening again. And she just happened to be a research associate with Dr. Magda Havas, who's one of the world's leading scientists on this up at Trent University. So Dr. Havas gave her one of the radio frequency detection meters and said, here, go scan your home and see what's going on. And sure enough, right under her bed was the DECT cordless phone.
Oh, no.
And just this morning, I was speaking to one of our colleagues down in North Carolina, and she was telling me about a man who had lost his wife to cancer, and they had the router under the bed. So it's just simple information. The solution is so simple, to just choose hardwired technology, and it's not rocket science. On the back of all of our routers, there are Ethernet ports. All you got to do is run an Ethernet cable to where you use your technology, and you can get a little Ethernet switch, which is like an extension box for electronics, and then you can plug in as many devices as you want. In a classroom, you could get one with 28 or 30 ports on it, and then if it doesn't have a direct Ethernet port in your device, you just buy these little dongles, right? And then you just plug it in. So hardwiring is the first step. The second step is to go in and physically turn off every antenna. And with 5G and the Internet of Things, industry is forecasting that we're all going to have 200 plus wirelessly connected devices in our homes. So Measuring is the third step. First you hardwire, second you turn off the antennas, and then you've got to measure to make sure you got it all. This is the Safe and Sound Pro 2 radio frequency detection meter that was recommended at the EMF medical conference. And all of this is available on my website at Massachusetts for Safe Technology. You can go to our resources and find excellent things. But when it boils down to it, we had a television set that there was nothing in the settings that I could change to turn off the radiation detection meter. I tried looking in the manual. I tried contacting the manufacturer. Nobody could disable this antenna for me. So I picked up this TV and I stuck it in my car and I drove down to the local tech guy and I said, Brendan, can you open that up and just take out that radiation part? And this is the enemy here. That's all it is. It's a little board that's attached to the motherboard. And this is what an antenna looks like. You unplug that, radio silence, as they say.
Right.
Right?
Very cool. Yeah.
So, Shannon, I love, that old make lemonade out of lemons thing.
Yeah.
So tell us what you've been doing. I know you tried working with your local community, and then you started trying to educate from the grassroots up. So what are some of the projects you've worked on? And then tell us about the new book that you've recently released.
Yeah, I ended up, well, I have a background in writing, and that just kind of was the thing. I'm trying to use my talents to do what I can because I realized that kind of direct activism for me wasn't working because I couldn't go places and be in the meetings and and just it was exhausting. So I thought, well, I'll write a book about my experience and about what this is, what's going on, and a lot of it just motivated. I was motivated by wanting to educate people dear to me, who I felt like weren't listening. Like my family and friends. Some of them still don't listen. They've read the book. They don't change anything. But that's like I've given them the tools, the knowledge. That's then up to them, right? After that.
Yeah, that's the best that we can do because we can't make anybody do anything. But like you knew a little something. So just planting these seeds, if they hit that tipping point, at least they know where to go look to see if there's something that could help them.
Exactly. And so it's called Wi-Fi Refugee, Plight of the Modern Day Canary. And had a lot of positive feedback about that book. And I also have written other books like that I also always EMFs. I've written about medical issues with vaccines, and that's a different topic, but it isn't in that it's like there's relationships between these, because the same industry is working together. And
the body burden, our bodies can only take so much, so it's not like we can choose one over the other if we're still putting the other into our bodies.
Right.
So good.
Right. And exactly. So and then I'm interested in health because of what I've been through as well, and I'd also interested in like so-called alternative health, but more traditional, I'd say, medicine and I study herbalism, and so and then I decided, I thought people are not listening. Why are they not listening still, to this message? And what hit me was that they're addicted, and that's why they don't want to hear it. Because why would you not want to hear this, right? I mean, and I saw this a long time ago because I'm talking like 2014 here, where I really got affected, and I remember a friend, I was telling her what's going on with me, and she had her smartphone in her hand, and she kept looking down on it, and she looked, and she's, interrupting the conversations, like looking at this thing, and she just said, kind of distracted. She said, "Oh, I could never give up. I could never give it up. Like I can't because of my work and and I think she even said I'd rather go with my right arm. People just like." And I thought, what's like, I mean, I had it for my work too. Like, you're just making excuses. Why? And obviously she wasn't doing her work right then. When she was talking to me, she was like looking at Facebook,
Yeah. And what we know scientifically is that this radio frequency radiation hits the central nervous system in the same way where drugs, alcohol, tobacco, gambling, pornography, when people say they're addicted to their devices, or if you try to separate a child from the device and they pull a complete nutty on you, it's real. Yeah. It is biologically addictive. So, it's not just the excessive screen time, it's this radio frequency radiation too. And then you throw in all the apps developers who are mindfully creating situations where you loop in and they won't let you go. So,
Right.
uh,
Yeah, it is designed to be addictive. It's all the whole design. And the EMFs, whether that's intentional or not, it stimulates, it's a stimulant. And I have a section in my new book. The new book is right here. It's called The Red Shoes, Our Devil's Dance with Technology and How We Can Stop It. And that there on the cover is like a puppet person like on strings with the VR glasses and red shoes. And so it turned out to be a whopper because quite a bit longer than the Wi-Fi refugee, because I cover so many topics. I realized how involved this was because it's like because I'm basically trying to show all the many harms that our technology is causing us, and so that we have more power over this, because it's all knowledge is power. And what I saw is this tool versus master theme and the reversal. So like we were masters over our tools, now the tools are becoming masters over us, and trying to take the reins back in our hands again, and not be led by it, right, and victims to it. So I think there's more openness and people willing to listen to the addiction aspect, and then that way I can help them see the EMF harm as well, because people I think are more able to see the addiction problem in at least people they know around them. But like a lot of things, like substance abuse as well, you can have somebody who does have a problem himself and not see it in himself, but see it sort of in the friend that drinks more than him or something. So I think that this is happening a lot. We're like, we see kids stuck in gaming. They're obviously like, oh yeah, kids are addicted. They're gaming. It's crazy. And so that really extreme example, like we see that, but we don't see the more subtle influence and then how it's affecting each and every one of us, including myself. So I'm hoping I use the extreme examples, but also kind of show how the behind the scenes, like how this is, the developers do this, and the neurobiology, and the dopamine hits, and the feedback loops, and and so there's so much, right? So I did a ton of research and I read a lot of books and a lot of articles, and so to me I sort of condensed it. It's a really good, I think, reference book where if you don't want to read all the many books I've read, and you could just read this one, and
right,
it's all in here. And I do cover the EMF different harms involved in that, but like just to it's time to make conscious choices about our use and step back and look at this. And the reason I use the fable, The Red Shoes, as the backdrop is that for those not familiar with the fable, just real quickly, it's about a young girl who has her handmade life that she's created because she's an orphan, and she's basically happy with it, and she makes her own red shoes and she's proud of them, and they do their job, and like protect her feet, and she's doing all this. But then one day, like this gilded carriage pulls up with an old lady in it who's part blind, and actually like says, I'll just take you away from all this and take care of you, and you won't have to work anymore. So it's this promise of leisure that's offered. And in that process, her own red shoes that she created are destroyed. They're burned. And then she's offered a replacement, and she goes for these shiny red shoes that end up being cursed, and like they're the counterfeit. So she's like dancing out of control. And I'm not gonna, I'm gonna try to shorten this, but it's the stories in the book. But she ends up a beggar, and with her losing her feet and her shoes in order to get out of them because it got so out of control. So it's this like out of control dance that our technology is taking us on, that we're trapped in, and we need to get out of. We need to get out of it before like we lose our feet. And people are literally, in some cases, losing their limbs. Like a 11-year-old boy I found a story of who got gamer's thrombosis from gaming too much, being sedentary while he was gaming, and getting the blood clot and having to amputate his leg at 11 years old.
Oh,
so like literal amputation from the tech use is like parallels to the story.
Yeah, and I know far too many kids who go off to college and they are addicted to their games, and they're staying up all night, day after day. They're not going to school, and they have to flunk out and drop out. So, it's not if this happens. This is happening in real time. Yeah. I read the opening to your book, and you're such a gifted writer. It's not dark and scary. You were able to weave in the information to keep us reading along and learning with you. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Wow.
And I like to add humor. So even though there's heavy topics, I usually lighten it up with some humor.
Very good. So where can folks find you? Where can they find your book?
Yeah, wi-fi-refugee.com, wi-fi-refugee.com. My book's on there. You can contact me directly if you want to share your story. I have lots of people contact me about with their similar stories, but also any other feedback. And if you want a signed copy, you can do that. You can also, they're available on Amazon, but they're very soon to be available on Barnes & Noble. I make all my books available on Barnes & Noble as well as an alternative to the, evil Amazon. So lots maybe will take advantage of that, as I would hope. But yeah, there are, and I think any day now it'll be on Barnes & Noble. I'm waiting for the confirmation, but yeah.
Oh, congratulations. That's excellent. So we've got about 2 minutes left. What would you want people to know in a nutshell?
Oh, about my book or about?
Just in general, about this whole craziness of where our technology is taking us and what we can do to reverse that.
I think what I've learned is really stepping back. So I advise people to start by taking like 1 hour a day away from screens. It's not much. And then 1 day per week away from screens. And then hopefully 1 week per year. That's like a good starting place. But the 1 day per week, a lot of people might not even be able to get off work a week a year. But 1 day per week will help you see what's happened. Like, because this shift, societal upheaval, crazy changes in our culture has happened very quickly, but because we've been so distracted and addicted ourselves, we haven't even really noticed. And we've kind of forgotten what life can be like or was like. I mean, some people just grow up with this, they don't even have any idea. But when you aren't distracted and tethered to your screens and technology, you'll start to remember the value of life outside of that and in the real world, and start to like do things that we used to do that we've forgotten. And you'll start to find you have a lot more time on your hands, because it's a real time suck, and we feel like we're so busy and anxious and stressed out because it's always grabbing our attention and demanding things from us. So, once you do that and you put more boundaries around it, because the thing is, the tech is not creating the boundaries. It doesn't want boundaries. And so we have to do that, right? So its whole design is to keep eyes on the screen, right? As long as possible, user engagement and maximizing that. So when you're aware of that, and I hope people will become resentful of this manipulation. And once you have that kind of resentment, you're like, hey, wait a minute, I'm being manipulated, right?
Yes.
You have that desire to say, I want to have control of this. I want to make these choices. So, but you have to first kind of remember what it's like to get off of that super highway crazy, train on that highway that we're on. And just like calm down your system and do things outside, do things with your kids outside.
Yes, back to nature, movement, touch, real connections with people. Well, Shannon, thank you so much. And for those who are new to our program, I do a free public education webinar every month on Zoom, usually the last week of the month. And anybody is welcome to just come learn along with us, and maybe with enough information from our programs, from Shannon's books, from her website, maybe you'll feel empowered to start giving yourself back your own time. And go to Massachusetts for Safe Technology or go to Wi-Fi Refugee, and we're here to help. Maybe you'll unplug and start reading The Red Shoes. All right, everybody, have a tech safe day. Shannon, thank you again for joining us.
Thanks so much.